Hello, and welcome to the Middle East Forum Speaker Webinar Series and Podcast. I'm Stacey Roman, and I will be moderating this discussion today. We're pleased to have Rabil, a professor of political science at Florida Atlantic University, join us to discuss the tragedy of Lebanon. Professor Rabil will speak for 15 minutes and open it up for questions. Should you wish to ask a question, please use the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen to type your question. And with that, I'll turn the discussion over to Professor Robert Rabil.
I thank you, Stacey, and I thank the Middle East Forum for this invitation. It's a pleasure and honor to be with you. There is so much to pack in 15 minutes, but let me give you, a general background, and then I will speak about what can be done about Lebanon and the tragedy. As a matter of fact, the tragedies that have been piling upon Lebanon. Lebanon emerged as a state in 1920 under the French mandate. And with that, what happened is that you had certain areas from the north, from the south, from the west, that were annexed to Mount Lebanon, and thus it became called as Greater Lebanon. By this, what happened, the Christians that formed then a majority now turned or had a slim plurality. The French also, what did they do? They instituted a confessional system modeled after the one that existed during the Ottoman Empire. Now, the French remained there until 1943. 1943, Lebanon took its independence. Two developments took place. The first development that took place is that you have a transition. You have a transition from feudalism based on tax farming to political sectarianism. And what do I mean by that, by political sectarianism? Political sectarianism, mainly, you have a sectarian leader, and that sectarian leader, the first most interest for him was his political survival. Then the second thing is the sect, his sect, the interest of his sect. And third, of course, the country. So mainly, when Lebanon took its independence, you had some kind what called national compact or national pact. The Muslims and Christians came together and said, listen, we are having a new country. We are going to have a pact. That pact relied mainly on the idea that the Christian will try to Lebanonize the Muslims, and the Muslim will try to Arabize the Christian. This, of course, did not happen given the Arab-Israeli conflict, given the Cold War in the Middle East. Now, I go there, and again, I refer to political sectarianism. And what I mentioned by political sectarianism is that political sectarianism not only undermined already the weak national identity of Lebanon, but also turned the state into a fodder for spoils. So here what you have now, the interest, how you are going to survive and how you are going to feed your own people, your own sect. So mainly the political sectarianism in Lebanon created a patronage system called Taba'iyya that really turned Lebanon, even during the high day, during the Paris of the Middle East or the Switzerland of the Middle East, into a farm, run like a farm. The second development that took place, mainly for the system to work, is that confessional system. And the confessional system is a system that distributes power along religious lines. So for that system to work, you need a communal balance or a confessional balance. Well, this balance was not there. It was disrupted in 1958. At the time, the Christian leaders supported the Eisenhower Doctrine, the Nasserite, or the follower of Nasser. They had very strong, strident nationalism that did not jibe well with the Christians. You had a quasi-civil war, which was resolved or diffused by the American. Eisenhower, then the president, sent the Marine to Lebanon. Then what happened? You had the Civil War, 1975 to 1990. 1975 to 1990, again, the system was broken. And on account of the system was broken, you have non-state actors that emerged in Lebanon. One of them, of course, was the PLO. The PLO emerged as a strong power broker in Lebanon. Arafat emerged as a kingmaker in Lebanon. And although I would say the Palestinians were not at the heart of the problems of Lebanon, but were a catalyst to what happened in Lebanon in that civil war. Well, the Palestinian or the PLO were evicted in Lebanon thanks to the Israeli. When Israel invaded in 1982, it expelled the PLO. And you have now a period of time where Hizballah emerged and Syria came to control Lebanon. As a matter of fact, the end of the Civil War, 1990, marked the beginning of the total occupation of Syria, of Lebanon, and that lasted from 1990 until 2005. 2005, what happened after the murder of the Prime Minister Hariri? You had the Lebanese from cross-sectarian, all cross-sectarian. They took the street, and as a matter of fact, they pushed Syria out of Lebanon. But then what did you have? What did you have? You had Hizballah. Hizballah was fed, was groomed, was supported early on from the 1980s, and especially under Syrian occupation of Lebanon. Really, it became a state within a state. And something was Hizballah that did better than the PLO in Lebanon. Of course, they became a major power broker. They established not only a state with a state within a state thanks to its weapon, but also thanks to its social infrastructure. Lebanon, as I mentioned to you, acted under the political elite, under political sectarianism, acted really as a farm, really, and the Shia did not do well. Hizballah came in, thanks to their social infrastructure, they were able to have, a good number of followers. So these are the two things. Then what happened after that? Mainly, you had some kind of a fortune pact between the political elite and Hizballah. The political elite robbed the state, and not only robbed the state, as you see after the October Revolution in 2019, they even robbed the deposits, the fortunes, of Lebanese in their own banks. So here, what do you have now? Really, the country is broken. The country doesn't have money. The country, is facing, as the World Bank said, is facing the worst, crisis since mid-19th century. Now let's move forward about Hizballah. Hizballah, started to become stronger and stronger. After the Civil War, all the militia were dismantled again, unless for Hizballah. And Hizballah became an actor, not only in Lebanon. It became actor, for example, a huge actor in Syria Civil War, then in Iraq, then in Yemen. So Hizballah made Lebanon, part of all this, turbulence and problems, in the region without the consent of the Lebanese people. So mainly Hizballah hijacked the very most important thing, the most quintessential thing is that the question of peace and war. They have now a lot of weapons thanks to Iran. They do the biddings for Iran. They call themselves the so-called axis of resistance, and Iran support them, Syria support them. And they became seasoned fighter in Syria after fighting there since 2011, the war in Syria. So this is, again, that's a huge problem. The other problem here, you have the Syrian refugees. The Syrian refugees, something about it. Early on, and I wrote a book, about the Syrian refugee. The Syrian refugee, when the war erupted, many Lebanese opened their homes to the Syrian refugee. Their numbers was low. I still remember during my visits to refugee camp in 2012, 2015, and this started to change in 2015. The Syrian refugee today, according to Lebanese, statistics, they are 2 million people in Lebanon. Lebanon has a population around 5 million people. So Lebanon now today has the largest number of Syria per capita refugee, in the world. And this, as a matter of fact, after the socio-economic crisis and political crisis facing Lebanon, Lebanon doesn't have water. Lebanon does have very rare electricity. The health system is crumbling. So really, we are looking at a really failed state. And you have a political elite, as I mentioned, they are highway robbers. So now what happened, you have a lot of tension between the Lebanese and the Syrian refugee. Now, the Syrian refugee, and here I can tell you this, I am against anything against them, and I'd like them to have their dignity. But also we have to look at the Lebanese and what's happening to the Lebanese. The Lebanese currency lost 95% of its value. And as I mentioned, no electricity and no water. With 2 million people, they need water, they need electricity. And some help came for them. And here I would say something, United United Nations helped them, but not, I would say, fully helped them. You always had a gap. But the point is, from a Lebanese perspective, the Syrian refugee get more help than the Lebanese. Today, the Lebanese are 80% now at poverty level. Over 50% acute, they face acute food insecurity. And when they look at the Syrian, they are unhappy with what's going on. They feel that they are taking money from United Nations. And more that now, given that they are taking some money and more help from United Nations, some Syrian now started to have multiple wives and have more children so as to have more money. This created a lot of tension today, and I am very worried about the tensions that could break out into some kind of strife between the Lebanese and the Syrian refugee. And more so, I would say again, the Syrian born in Lebanon. The Syrian born in Lebanon far exceed the Lebanese born in Lebanon. So what you see now in Lebanon, you have political sectarianism that really turned the state into a farm. Hizballah that turned it a hostage to Iran and a hostage, to war any time. And the Syrian refugee really is that whatever left in Lebanon for the Lebanese, and really I feel sorry to speak about it, really you don't have enough now to feed the Lebanese. So really this is Lebanon. And Lebanon today is really, living on chemotherapy, living on morphine and chemotherapy. From my perspective, it is a failed state. The army is the only institution that's still working, but still I'm going to give you an example. A Lebanese officer used to have around $900 a month. Today, given the value of the Lebanese pound or the Lebanese lira, today he gets $50 a month, and sometimes less, because it is now every dollar is worth over 100,000, and it fluctuates. So really, how you are going to deal with this? How you are going to resolve it? And being a realist as I am, and being someone who lived in Lebanon and served in the Red Cross in Lebanon for quite some time, it's an uphill battle. It's an uphill battle. I can tell you about the debates that are going on in Lebanon, especially from the Christian. You have Christian forces that said, listen, we are going to have federalism. You have other Christian forces that will say, listen, we need secession. We are going to have this small piece of land, and we don't want to deal with anybody. But here, when you look at the past of Lebanon and the history of Lebanon, and especially what happened to the Christian, in the 1860, you had a war, and the Christians really, they did not win. They suffered. And during the Civil War, they suffered. And when you speak about federalism, when you speak about secession, of course, you are going to see, all right, how is the community? Does the community support you? And they don't have much support. When you speak about federalism, does the Druze support you? Does the Sunni support you? Does some Shia independents support you? They don't support. So I worry about this. I support the concept of federalism, but I worry about the application of federalism because they don't have much support. Federalism is about, sharing power, and I don't see that, you have an impasse today. And what you have today in Lebanon, exactly, you have a communal imbalance, very, very stark. You have the Christians, the Christian community is fragmented. The Sunni community is leaderless. The Druze community acts from the position for political survival, and the Shia community has the gun. And when you look, you say, okay, what are the questions and what are the, the remedy for that? And from my position, and I will take more question after, this new generation of Lebanese, they have to rally about Lebanon. They have to have a new pact. This old pact that we say, okay, we are going to Lebanonize, the Muslim, and the Muslim, they are going to, to Arabize. This is an old pact. It's a past now. You need to have a new national pact, a new mithaq watani. This is what they have, and this is what they should have, based on Lebanon first and foremost, based on one national identity, based on democracy in the full term of democracy, not the quasi-democracy, based on removing those sectarian leaders. You cannot have them anymore. You had them for quite some time. You have rarely new leaders in Lebanon. Mainly you have the party and the leaders, and they are the same, from father to son to grandson. This is what's happening in Lebanon. And again, in the region, Lebanon has to espouse as as it should have been early on, and this is what some in Lebanon have been calling on, neutrality, regional disassociation from what's going to happen. Now, unless a new generation comes in, and I am not hopeless. In Lebanon today, you have some kind of a despondency. You have many, they are unhappy. You have many, they feel hopeless. And this is why you have way more people leaving Lebanon. Migration from Lebanon has been really some kind, it had a legacy in Lebanon. But today, you have no hope. And I speak with my friends, I speak, with people I know, I speak with people that I know early on. Their children today, always at one time, they said, no, we are going to stay in Lebanon. Today, no, everybody, if the embassies of the world open their doors to Lebanese migration, you are not going to have very few Lebanese in Lebanon. So really what you need to do now, really, those people that took the street in 2005, those youth that took the street in 2019 and 2020 and 2021, although they were affected by the COVID pandemic, they have to rally together. They have to work together. There is no escape. There is no other outlet but one Lebanon, one national identity. And sectarianism should, again, go to the back burner. You could improve the system, based on meritocracy if you are going to keep some kind of a confessional formula. But it cannot work like that. You need to have transparency. And myself, and sadly, I said, though, it's an uphill battle. And I feel that absent this rallying around a new national identity, new national pact, based on Lebanon, based on full democracy, based on transparency, Lebanon is going to be, facing tragedy in perpetuity. Mainly, you are going to have a tragedy for so long. And this is the sad things about Lebanon. I spoke for 15 minutes, exactly, and I will be more than happy to take questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. So Steve asks, what are the lessons learned by Israel from the way they exited Lebanon post-1982 through 2006 and 2006?
All right. Well, let me tell you this, since I was someone who knew a little bit about the dynamics, since I served in the Red Cross, I met Israelis, and my Ph.D. is in Near Eastern and Judaic studies. So mainly Israel knows that let me put it this way. Whatever Israel thought before Israel invasion of Lebanon turned not right. Mainly the dynamics of Lebanon are very complicated. And it's very difficult for any party to go in and bring that communal peace if the Lebanese, they don't have this communal peace themselves. So for Israel to be involved again, or for Israel to do, or for any other country, as a matter of fact, I think it's going to be very difficult if you don't have some kind of a national unity. And I think the Israeli, especially the intelligence, know that because they learned a lot of lessons, how to deal with Lebanon and how not to deal in Lebanon. Myself, as a matter of fact, and many Lebanese, as a matter of fact, and let me tell you this openly. You have a ceasefire, you have an armistice agreement with Israel. And today you have a maritime border agreement with Israel. So many Lebanese, they don't want anything to do with Israel. Mainly, they don't want any war with Israel. But the problem is the question of peace and war is not in their hand, it's with Hizballah. And Hizballah, after the Saudi-Iran agreement, they feel a little bold, and what's happening with Russia and what's happening in the Ukraine war, they feel a little bit bold, and now you have a very serious situation in Lebanon.
Thank you. Larry Greenberg asks, what did the creation and existence of Israel have anything to do with the fragmentation of sectarian Lebanon? Didn't such a country have more in common with Israel than Muslim states in which Christians were a little more than Zimmis?
Well, I can tell you this. For example, the Druze supported the Israeli. Israel came, and look, Israel does not have a constitution, but Israel does have basic laws. And if you look at the basic law, there is respect for all. Respect for freedom of speech, respect for association, respect regardless of the gender or or religious background, and mainly, something about Israel. And I tip my hat, chapeau bas. Early on, the leaders of Israel, really, they worked for the interest of the state of Israel, for all the people in Israel. And this is why Israel became successful startup nation, and it's doing very well. It faces a lot of problems. It's consumed by the Palestinian issue, consumed by the threat of the Iran axis or Hizballah axis. But still, at the same time, Israel has achieved more than any other country in the Middle East, and that's something is highly commendable.
Thank you so much. David S. Levine states, you say that the Lebanese have to get together and change the national contract. Are the Lebanese willing to do this? Do young Christian Lebanese trust young Muslims and vice versa?
Yes, as a matter of fact, yes. And this is what I would like to see more, because it's based on precedent. When you had the assassination of Hariri, you have Muslims and Christian came together. There was no sect. There was no, you are Muslim or you are Christian, you are Jewish. They came together and they said, listen, Syria out. And Syria occupied Lebanon, occupied terribly Lebanon. And they said, Syria out. And then what happened is that the political leaders came in, and really somehow you have a disconnect. You have a disconnect between the people of Lebanon and between the political leader. And the political leader, they maneuver, they kind of, they monopolize their power. Why? As I mentioned to you, because they created a patronage system. For example, I'll give you an example. If you want to have work now today in Lebanon, if you don't know a leader, it's very hard for you to have work. Today, the system, the all health system is crumbling in Lebanon. If you don't have a leader behind you, it's very hard to go and find your medicine. So this is what's happening. And when I see myself that, no, they took the street in 2005, they took the street in 2019, 2020, really, this is why you have civil society. They have to work better together. They have now certain, I would say small, they should really, that work within civil society stronger and stronger. For example, in the recent election in Lebanon, you have a few that broke the monopoly of the sectarian leader. You have 15 independent deputies in the parliament. So this is what you need. You need to break that. Now, I know it's an uphill battle. It's really an uphill battle. But again, if the Lebanese don't work together, this youth generation, my generation is over. I am an American citizen. My grandfather was an American citizen. I served in the Red Cross. My father worked in General Motors in Lebanon. But I like Lebanon. It's my heritage, and I like to see peace in the Middle East, all over the Middle East. And I like to see peace in Lebanon, because this is a country that imported, that exported the alphabet. And today what they are exporting, well, what they are exporting, opium, and I don't know what, the Captagon, I don't know what they are called, this opium. Really, it's a shame to what's happening in Lebanon. And I think that, really you have enough Lebanese, and they need encouragement from the EU, from United States, to work together. And you need a strong government. As I mentioned to you, Hizballah has been there for 40 years. So when they say, oh, listen, we are going to deal with Hizballah, how you are going to deal with Hizballah? How you are going to take the weapons from Hizballah? This is unrealistic, very unrealistic. But little by little, let the government go. Let the government, really offer its help, to people, and let the Lebanese work together. There is hope. And Lebanon is not a country that is Lebanon as a state, from 1920, from independence 1943, but as a political entity, it goes, for centuries. They were able to survive. They were able to survive many invasions, from the Mamluk to the Fatimid to others. You know what I mean? And they survived it. And now today, it's a litmus test, as a matter of fact, to the Lebanon. Because Lebanon, if it's going to stay like that, it's no longer Lebanon as we know. And already it changed so much.
Thank you. So essentially, you see that the outside countries' help would be in the form of helping the Lebanese gather together to take back their country, essentially. Is that what you're saying?
Okay, what I'm saying, Stacey, yes, you can help. You have civil society organ in Lebanon, so you need to help them. You need, for example, to reduce the reliance on Hizballah's social infrastructure, especially in the south, from Beirut south. You have many that rely on Hizballah. And those people, as long as they rely on Hizballah, how you are going to change this? So this is where you start. But again, as I mentioned to you, the number one priority and the number one formula really to go ahead and put Lebanon on a path to reclaim its health, because really it has cancer today, as I mentioned to you. They are living on chemotherapy. Is for the youth of Lebanon. The youth of Lebanon. The older generation has, in my book, it's gone. It's over. It's no use. They're gonna be there, but little by little, you have this youth. They have to come together. And as I mentioned to you, I don't kid myself. It's a long-term project. It's a long-term project. Hizballah is over 40 years old. You cannot just do it with Hizballah, but you have to start somehow and somewhere. And as I mentioned, I saw it. I saw it in my own eyes in 2005. I saw it in 2019. That's it. Yes, you have hope. Yes, you have hope. And the Lebanese, I tell them always, don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. You have to work for your country. And look, and I tell them, listen, and they don't like to hear, and some of them, they don't like to hear that. Look at Israel and really the problem, the tribulations that went through. Yeah, really, from independence, with all the attacks, the 1967 war, 1973 war, and after that, and they managed, they managed to secure their border, secure their country, but also they managed to build a very, very productive and very agile, and very intelligent civil society that work for the benefit of the state. And this is why it is a startup nation.
Absolutely.
They are Israeli first and foremost. This one takes, they don't listen to, I don't know who, yes, they have friends, they have allies, but they are Israeli first and foremost. And for the Lebanese, for their country to be better, they have to be Lebanese first and foremost. It boils down to this.
Absolutely. So Hezbollah was just one of the 3 points that you touched on. So David Stambler would like to know, will the Syrian refugees be absorbed into Lebanon society and become Lebanese citizens?
Okay. That's a very good question, because many Lebanese today that I speak with, and not only Christians, Druze, Muslims, including Shia, it's a big worry for them. It's a huge concern because listen, the war has been going on since 2011. Today you have 2 million of them, and still they don't want to go there. They don't want to go there. You have more children now, as I mentioned to you. In the Lebanese now, you have approximately the birth rate is 1.25. Among the Syrian is over 3 and over 4 and over 5. Mainly, and as I mentioned, for them, and I feel sorry for them. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to look, harsh on the Syrian. For them to have more, help, more humanitarian aid, from their perspective, is better for them to marry more and to have more children. So really, every family has at least 5, 6 children. And in many cases, you have more than 2 wives for every person. And you have 2 million people. So of course, the Lebanese are extremely worried. And when they speak with the West, especially with the EU, a lot of Lebanese, they feel that somehow the international community, really, it's not looking at the dilemma and at I would say the tragedy of the Lebanese and what they are living to. And here, I don't want to take any away from the Syrian refugee. I want them to have their dignity. I absolutely am against anything, especially any harassment or any violence. But I am worried now today because they're not, listen, it's like you are having in United States 150 or 150 million refugees. This is how it looks like. Out less than 5 million to have 2 million, and their children now, they are more. And mainly when you are born in Lebanon, you are stateless. Stateless, okay, then after what? Who is registering them? The United Nations Refugee Agency. But then later they speak with Lebanon and say, tell them we are going to send them to some Lebanese school, although not all of them. We are subsidizing their health in the hospital. This is where Lebanese, they can't even Lebanese go to their hospital, and they see Syrian going to the hospital. So of course, and it's a very important question, because the Lebanese feel not only they have problems among themselves, today they have a huge problems in the form of a mass of Syrian refugees. 2 million, that's a lot of people. You know, you have thousands of Syrian children are born every single day. And they know Lebanon, they don't know Syria.
Absolutely, thank you. So JL sums this up pretty well. So where do you see the country in 5 to 10 years, and how will this affect the security of Israel?
All right, security, all right. How I see it, 5 to 10 years, I hope it's gonna be better. Although I think myself, it's gonna be take more than 10 years to really have a better and decent Lebanon. It's gonna take time. But during that time, as a matter of fact, you can go on a path, you know, of having the society better, healthier, you know, less sectarianism, less corruption, better transparency. Now with Hizballah, it's a problem. Yes, it is a problem. I know that Hizballah and Israel, they have certain red lines, but I can tell you my worries. My worries today are more than before. And why I mention that? This is on account of Russia's relationship with Iran. The closer they are getting together, I think that their strategic cooperation has transitioned into a strategic alliance today. Russia needs Iran. Iran, as a matter of fact, has been, you know, front and center in the war, you know, against Ukraine. And this has translated into Russia can no longer, as a matter of fact, create red lines for Iran in Lebanon and in Syria. And I can share some things with you and with the, you know, and with the viewer, is that whereas before Russia, you know, somehow created red lines or limited or restricted, you know, the smuggling of sophisticated weapon or the advent of weapons into Syria, I don't think Russia will do that again. And I think this is what the Hizballah are shooting at, mainly to have better weapons from Russia. And this is why, and I know it's a little bit kind of, it's off mark a little bit, but this is why I think that Israel, myself, if I'm going to observe or to say something to Israel, and I said it and I wrote about it, don't get me wrong, you know, I really think that Israel needs to maintain a decent relationship with Russia, because its security will be affected, and the security of Lebanon, again, you know, will be affected as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Before we go, can you tell our viewers where we can find some of your work?
Well, as a matter of fact, listen, if you Google me, I have tons of work. I have many books. If you look here, you know, I have tons of books. I have done a lot of research, you know, on Israel and Lebanon, on Syria, on the Syrian refugee, on the confessional system, you know, and I have now a forthcoming book on Lebanon and Turkey. I'm looking at the Ottoman policy and Turkish policy, and I'm highlighting not only, you know, the history of Ottoman-Turkey relationship with Lebanon, but also what happened during World War I. You had the Great Famine, you know, you have a lot of things, a lot of tragedies that happened, but very few people speak about the Great Famines that took place in Mount Lebanon and Beirut, where you have 1/3 of the population of Lebanon, of Mount Lebanon and Beirut died from starvation and the epidemics. I wrote for Middle East Quarterly. I have many articles out. You know, a simple Google, and you can find me. And I have my own website. You know, I put them there from time to time. I have tons of articles and a long list of books. And by the way, my books, please allow me to say that, my books are all well commended, peer-reviewed and commended. Of course, I have my detractor and my supporters, but I think I have enough supporters, you know, that speak highly of my work. And my work is based on research. You know, I lived in many areas. You know, I served in the Red Cross. And I love what to do. And this is why I have been a prolific author.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And best of luck.
Thank you, Stacey. And I thank the Middle East Forum for having me.
Of course.
And I thank for all those who listened to me with my heavy accent. And I hope I didn't speak too fast.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you, Professor Rabil.
Thank you, Stacey. Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.
Of course. For our viewers, please be on the please join us Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern for an update with Ashley Perry. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful day.